For me personally, this was irreconcilable. God loves us, I was told from my earliest memories, and I believed that, yet the interior feeling of that intellectual proposition almost never present for me owing to my years of abuse, an entire childhood and youth of daily abuse. I couldn't feel the love of God as a child because I was incapable. I had no capacity to. It's been about 18 months or so since I've been in therapy for intense trauma from childhood. Without any of the gory details, at an early age, I was sexually abused physically, and then practically every day of my childhood, I was sexually abused psychologically. In my case, as well as many other people whose childhoods were devastated, this resulted in chronic PTSD. That was the official diagnosis I received. And when I saw it there on the paper, I was stunned. It was like surreal. It was like looking at something from somebody else's case. Many soldiers returning home from battle experienced PTSD. In fact, it's been the military term, PTSD, that most people recognize that term. But what the field of neuroscience is revealing is that apart from the adult brain, which is close to being physically formed in military-aged men, a child's brain, not even close. The feeling, not knowledge, but the feeling of being safe is critical to a child's psychological formation, which happens in conjunction with the brain's physical forming, its formation, the neuropathways, the functioning, the electric circuit firings, the hormones, all of it. Deprive a young child of the feeling of being safe, and there's likely going to be hell to pay down the road. Events like physical sexual abuse coupled with continuing psychological abuse around sex, when inflicted on a child, that creates a level of fear that the brain, the physical organ inside the skull, simply does not have the capacity to process any more than a small boy's body is capable of running a 4-minute mile or his intellect is capable of doing trigonometry. It simply does not have the means, the capability, the capacity, the wherewithal to deal with the flood of the emotion of fear, the chemicals flooding into the brain. All of that just overwhelms the psyche, physically in the organ of the brain as well as emotionally. However, that doesn't mean all that just goes away because the brain can't process it. What it does mean is that the brain, being incapable of processing it in a healthy fashion with an adult capability, resorts to processing it in an unhealthy fashion, the only way a child's brain is capable of doing so. The mind, meaning the intellect working with the emotions, they work in tandem to shield the child, to limit the fear, to reduce the pain from the reality of what's going on, to, in short, protect the boy. In the process, however, of creating a literal survival mechanism, the mind begins to lie to itself, all subconsciously, of course. The child's completely oblivious consciously to any of this going on. Think of all of this as a survival lie. When threatened with such a level of fear, instinct kicks in, whatever age a person is, and the mind does whatever it has to do to survive. Healthy or unhealthy be damned. Even in adults we see this, but once the fear, the trauma has passed for an adult, the mind usually returns to normal. Again, in an adult, sure, you can hit with trauma, but you have the ability to process it. But here's the catch. A child's mind, formed in trauma, in fear, doesn't really know what normal is, so it can't go back to it. It has never experienced it. It doesn't know what normal is. All of that, the perpetual state of fear, a life-threatening fear becomes physically carved into the brain, and it remains. And it's from that sense that the conscious mind, the intellect operates from, without ever being significantly aware of it. So everything is impacted: view of self, view of others, and most importantly, the view of God. The psyche is shattered from the pain, yet, for most anyway, it has some awareness that it still has to function in the day-to-day real world. Side note here, for the most severe cases of young people experiencing all this, well, God have mercy on them, just kill themselves. because they can't bring reality into alignment with their pain. But for those who survive physically, the emotional damage is crippling. On the inside, when it comes to God, he gets wrongly viewed as somehow being to blame, ultimately. After all, he's God, and he allowed all of this. He didn't do anything to stop it. The thought develops pretty quickly that he is indifferent to your pain, as it did with me, that he was indifferent to my pain and all of the circumstances causing it. He's distant, feels that way, and remains distant. Again, that's how it feels. And when feelings are in that driver's seat, they have control. And frankly, what else would a child feel? Seriously, he's not capable of anything else. For me personally, this was irreconcilable. God loves us, I was told from my earliest memories, and I believed that, yet the interior feeling of that intellectual proposition almost never present for me owing to my years of abuse, an entire childhood and youth of daily abuse. I couldn't feel the love of God as a child because I was incapable. I had no capacity to. You can't give what you don't have, and likewise, you can't receive what you don't have the capacity to accept. You can't explain the color yellow to someone who has been blind from birth. The ultimate goal of therapy, in my humble opinion, at least in my experience, is to correct this, to get the feelings and the intellect in line with each other in reality. So for this entire week, I'd like to concentrate on this theme because I've experienced all of this over the past 18 months. Emotional wreckage in people's lives from childhood trauma, and I mean serious trauma. I'm not throwing that word around like, oh, I got trauma, I got to go see my therapist. I'm talking about real serious stuff here. It's far more serious than it's ever given credence for. I know some of this may hit close to home, and others likely blow it off. I'm talking about all of this for those it may help. For those who blow it off, well, you should be on your knees in constant thanksgiving that none of this was ever your life's experience. Coming to you from Houston, Texas, I'm Gary Michael Voris. God love you.